Hello and welcome to Relationships and Astrology. And today we're talking about the September new moon in Libra. And I'm Margaret Gray in Dublin.
And I'm Armand Diaz in Glen Cove, Long Island, New York.
That's pretty detailed, Armand. So we've got this new moon in Libra, and Libra being the sign of relationships, the reaction is usually, oh, that's a lovely new moon for relationships. And I know that I kind of think it is a lovely new moon, but when we were speaking earlier, I think we mightn't have totally agreed on whether it's a lovely moon for relationships or not. So,
well, yeah.
Go for it, Armand.
Right away, we're having communication problems. Yes. That's what I mean.
So what are your thoughts about this new moon? What are your concerns about this new moon for relationships?
Well, there's a bunch of them. This new moon is tightly quincunx Uranus, Uranus in Taurus, and the Sun and Moon in Libra. So we've got this energy there. The Sun and Moon in Libra like to follow the rules. It's a gracious, graceful type of sign. And then there's Uranus in Taurus, which is a little bit more raw sensuality, or certainly rebelling against the rules. You're not necessarily the most mannered placement. So I could see that as being a problem. Do we want to follow the rules, or do we not?
Well, could it also, though, be new beginnings in relationships? Because the Uranus in Taurus, could actually bring maybe some excitement in, something new around sensuality, around connecting with loved ones. And, of course, I'm an Aries, so I would say it's exciting to have Uranus, coming into the picture. But I do think it could just open up, something new. And relationships keep changing all the time. And so, a little flash of inspiration, insights into issues that are going on.
Could be. I am unconvinced, but you want to include. It's a possibility. It certainly is a possibility. It will shake things out of that Libran mode a little bit. But you want to include things from Aries. How about the fact that this new moon is pretty directly opposite Chiron?
Now, I think that's very interesting because when you've got, a new moon opposite something, it's really about integration of both those aspects. And although Chiron, of course, has the reputation for being, as I call it, a little bit ouchy, a little bit maybe, brings in things, but also it is about understanding and it is about learning. If we think of the myth around Chiron, he was half human, half horse. He was the teacher to the children of the gods. So he was a teacher. And I really think that he could help us integrate things that really can help us, heal ourselves and heal our relationships. Because ultimately, unless we heal ourselves and our own wounds and our own issues, it's very hard to be in a relationship that's balanced, which is what Libra wants. So I do wonder if this new moon gives us an opportunity to maybe do some really understanding of what are the issues we have that are about ourselves that maybe we need to really put a little bit more work into and integrate, which ultimately is very beneficial for relationships.
Could be.
You're not convinced.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think Chiron in Aries is about doubting the self. And then we have the Libra new moon. Whenever we've had Libra energy, we've had Mercury opposite Chiron, we've had Venus opposite Chiron fairly recently. I think what happens is then Libra's asking us about relationship, and we're saying, well, I'm not sure where I'm at with things, so I'm not sure how we're going to work this out in terms of other. So I think that's that Aries, Chiron versus Libra type of energy. It is an opportunity for integration. It is an opportunity for a sort of new beginning on that. So there is a positive side to that, but that's a positive outcome. That's not a positive experience necessarily. And not that new moons are necessarily about the experience. They tend to unfold over time. I just want to throw in there too. We had a very tense week for communication. Mercury was sextile to Jupiter earlier in the week, but on Thursday, Mercury square Pluto, and at the new moon, we don't often talk about Eris, that goddess of chaos, but Mercury is directly opposite Eris. So he's going from a square to Pluto to an opposition to Eris. Got to watch communication. That's the things could certainly get feisty in terms of communication. Again, Mercury is that Libra energy. Follow the rules, be gracious about things. And then there's Eris. Not so much.
Continuing on the positive streak, because I'm not giving up on it, there is a wonderful sextile between Venus and Jupiter, which really, Jupiter brings possibilities, especially in Sagittarius. It's such a wonderful, expansive energy. And I think in relationships, when things are a little rough, they can contract, and that can be so, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And with Jupiter to Venus, not only does it expand relationships, it expands our sense of self-value. And if our sense of self-value feels good and expansive, then we're more likely to be able to hear what the other person is saying and to respond in a way which is very Libran, which is kind of that balance of me and other rather than just me again. So what do you have to say about that, Armand, then?
It's a nice sextile. It holds potential. Sextiles hold potential, If this was a sextile on a full moon, I'd be saying, wow, that could really be fun and nice. But, on a new moon, again, it's a really good potential, but it's seeding that potential for where we can go, where we can move relationships. It's certainly not something that's likely to manifest right away. Interestingly, a lot of aspects seem to be sort of past, where Venus is past a square to Saturn, past a square to the nodes. There's a lot of action seems to be sort of in the past. Venus is even past a quincunx to Neptune, which you were talking about before, which definitely that it's good that it's past a quincunx to Neptune, because it has the sense then that some of the illusions, some of the misunderstandings that can go with Neptune, are in the past.
Yes, I think with the Neptune, I do agree with you. I think it can be delusion, illusion, confusion, all of that kind of fogginess. That really with the quincunx isn't as pleasant as if it was, a Venus trine Neptune, where there would also be some romance. So there could be a little bit of romance too there, but it's hard to make out, the wood from the trees. There's also another aspect which I think is very important, which we've been toying about, with for so many months, and we're still in, which is the conjunction between Saturn and the South Node, which is exact. What do you think about that?
Nothing. Well, okay, or maybe you mean Saturn opposite the North Node.
Sorry, opposite the North Node, conjunct the South Node. So
that doesn't
obviously
really make it much better, does it?
No, it really doesn't at the moment, quite honestly.
It's that's an aspect that is certainly, we see that infusing politics and society. We see a lot of stuff going on there that is really, like quite tense, and really bringing up some of the darker sides of our institutions as well. A lot of stuff with businesses as well too. A lot of businesses are in trouble when it comes to relationships. I mean, I think that what we see is that there's this sort of decay of structure going on on so many levels, and it's a very, we think it's not like personal to me. What if Trump is impeached? It doesn't matter to me. And yet, there is this sort of instability. I mean, it shakes financial markets. And when financial markets shake, then companies and then hiring and you start to have doubts about things. And so the global stuff trickles into our personal lives much more than we think. The collective it's the pond we're swimming in. It's not out there. It's here as well. And I think that's that instability is very hard for relationships.
I also think in terms of relationships on a personal level that, we're in the arena of really letting go. We've talked about this before, the old structures, the way of being, how we have constructed relationships, how we are in relationships, what we seek security-wise in relationships. All of that, I think, with this exact conjunction to the South Node, we're really being, it's more than just a gentle nudge. It's really a shove to let go. So I think if we're in relationships that are not authentic, that are not real to who we are, that don't have a structure that's built on a really solid foundation, which ultimately is about loving each other rather than about, the mortgage, the house, all of the other things, the families, what will people say, then I think this could be quite a rocky time, because it's just not tolerable anymore, because we really have to move away from that. So there could be, a little bit of shaking ground, similarly to, the earth
Aha!
that's shaking.
Aha! I got you away from the positive.
You did. Although not to put a positive spin on it, but actually, relationships that aren't real or authentic anyway are not going to make people happy. Ultimately, we're not going to be happy in them. So I think this new moon is really a start of a phase, and then, soon after, we're going to have Pluto going direct at last. And once we got Saturn and Pluto going direct in the next few weeks, they're really going to be moving forward towards that conjunction next January. And we are in the midst of major, major transformation in relationships. So this is really the time. And that's why I was saying as well about the Chiron, the healing. It's a little bit like, doing a bit of a clear out, eating healthy food for a couple of weeks, doing a detox or something, and really looking at, okay, what is it that I need to do to be the healthiest version of myself? And I would say the same in relationships. What do you need to do to be the healthiest, to have the healthiest relationships you possibly can, whether it's family, friends, partners, your kids, everybody. That would be my take on it.
I would put a little bit of a positive spin on it too. We are at just a little bit. We are at this new moon. We're just past that Venus-Saturn square that was exact on Wednesday, and that was very much the form of relationship. Venus in Libra, Saturn in Capricorn, actually sort of in good places, considering it's a square, but questioning the structure of relationships. And that square is activated by this new moon as the moon goes through Libra. But also so is that Venus-Jupiter sextile. So it is a clearing out of what doesn't work and then going forward into what might work for the future. But it is different assumptions, and that's hard for us to work with. It's hard to work with different assumptions about what relationships are. Where we talk about this, Mark? We talk about this in our relationship and astrology course, which begins on Sunday, right after the new moon. And if you look at our Facebook page, or if you go to relationshipsandastrology.com, you can find out all about that.
And also, Amand, that we're going to do it also as webinars. People can actually buy individual webinars. So do look out for that. Even if you don't feel you want to commit to a whole course, even though it's a certificate course, you might want to do a couple of the webinars, because, we really go in depth into the astrology of relationships. So yeah, it's a great time in new moon to consider that. So Armand, just to kind of summarize, what do you think? I was thinking, what would be good things to do with this new moon? My thoughts are really to really spend a little bit of time, maybe just meditating or just writing things down, and really doing, like you do when you're thinking you're doing a clear out in the attic or the basement. What do you want to get rid of? Where do you want to be? Maybe that might be a better starting point. Actually think, what is your goal? If you were to envisage the most pleasant, joyful, loving, nurturing, happy, joyful relationship, what would it look like? And what do you need to get rid of, clear out, that's really getting in the way of that, whether it's that you're on your computer every night and you're not giving the relationship enough time, and what do you need to, put in place? What foundations in order to create that? This might be a good time to do that.
I mean, new moons are always times of, they're always good for quiet contemplation. If you can get it, you don't always get it. But they are times to consider where you want to go. And in Libra, where you want to go in relationship is a very good consideration. Don't expect a lot from the new moon on the day of. It's an internal time. The energy tends to be a little bit quiet. it really is a time to sort of look for the future.
So we'll leave you all on that note, and we'll see you at the next full moon. So do tune in and do go to our Facebook page. Bye, Armand.
Bye-bye.